Hey YouTube, warbles on a lot here. As you know, I've spent the past month or so getting a bit worried about bushfire and trying to do something to get ready for it when it comes. If it comes, but probably when it comes. Part of the readiness involved filling up the existing water storage and erecting and filling up new water storage, taking the available total to something close to 15,000 litres, giving last year's fire hose a new 6.5 horsepower firefighting pump to replace the 3 horsepower water transfer pump, adding ball valves onto the two 25mm secondary output sockets or nozzles, pipes, 2 new secondary nozzles and 3 nylon canvas 25mm by 30m fire hoses with Storts fittings to go between the pump and its 2 new Storts fittings and the Storts fittings on the nozzles. So clearly the next step in increasing functionality involves putting a ball valve and Storts fittings on the main 25mm fire reel hose, and then poking a Storts fitting into this hose just shy of the nozzle, so that if I feel like it, I can pull that nozzle off and I can add all 3 canvas hoses onto this one, and thus be able to take myself 126 metres away from the pump before I start squirting water. So why I would want to do that, I'm not entirely certain. Okay, so it's not a bad system when you consider that it's actually, when it all boils down to it, a fire hose dedicated to the protection of a lawn locker that's been there for 29 years and cost me about $1,000. It's a comprehensive fire hose, but clearly it would be better if I had more water for it. And as it happens, right now we're here, and down here there's a dam, and in that dam there's about 120,000 litres of water, and the distance from there to here is 500 metres on the map, and it's up about 15 metres. And this thing sucks up and spits out 100 litres per minute through a 25mm hose pushing against a nozzle. Turns out that on the numbers, if I had another one of those pumps, sort of like, voila, that one, and you can buy 2 of these for $1,000. Whereas, as I think I mentioned in an earlier video, one Briggs & Stratton, 6 horsepower, that's a 6.5 horsepower, one Briggs & Stratton, $1,205. So I bought 2 Chongqing Lai fans. Still had change. Which turns out to be a pretty good thing, because to get enough 1.25 inch diameter agricultural polypipe to cover 500 metres, you have to buy 4 150-metre coils of it. Pipe 1.25 inch rural poly by 150-metre coil for export, 1.38 1,380mm diameter, 285mm wide, 1000mm inside diameter, 28.6 kilograms, 4 of, coil $194 each, $778 for the 4 of them. And joiners, and something to join it onto the pump, plus that stuff I showed you to upgrade the fire hose. I'm not quite entirely certain why they gave me this stuff, because I don't think this game plan involved them. Originally I was going to use the old 3 horsepower pump, but that was only going to give me 40 litres per minute through the 1.25" diameter pipe, whereas 6.5 horsepower pushing through the same pipe, or 1.25", with no nozzle to push against, it'll probably give me about 100 litres a minute with which to refill the swimming pools as fast as the firefighting pump pushing against a nozzle with a smaller diameter hose can spit it out. And then with the hypothetical 100 metres to spare, which I should have, I hope to set up some kind of a static sprinkler system covering the water storage, the power storage, the aeroplane trailer, the machinery shed and the hut, so that when this pump here with its 3 hoses has got 15 tonnes of water sitting beside it ready to go, this pump can continue pushing water uphill through the big pipe, and then maybe when it's pushing against the nozzle of the sprinkler there might be 50 litres a minute coming out, and I'll probably have 3 or 4 separate lines, and I'll run one line at a time, so I can wet down the central island, I can wet down the hut, I can wet down the machinery shed, or I can wet down the aeroplane trailer kind of thing, and I'll try and organise for those sprinkler setups to be overlapping. Well, I guess the theory is that after an hour and a half it'd be time to refill the pump up here, leave this pump idling while there's still water coming up through the sprinkler system, leave the sprinkler system set up, probably defending the hut or maybe the hut and the water, cross the fence onto the neighbour's place, walk but don't run so you don't fall over, and go down to the dam 500 metres away, stop that pump, refill that pump, start that pump again, and then trot back, or walk but don't run, back up again on the neighbour's side of the fence because it's easier, clearer walking there, and get back up here so that the sprinkler has been running continually except for the maybe 5 minutes, 3 minutes while refilling the engine. When you get back up here, you've still got this place wet, the tanks are full, the pump's full, and all you got to do is ramp the throttle up. So that's the plan, the augmented water transfer system. That's the suction pipe for the new pump, by the way. And now, after letting these things sunbake to warm up, comes the time when one has to bite the bullet, and I'm going to go and have lunch and a cup of coffee first to work up the nerve, where one has to actually cut probably all but one of the tyres on one of these rolls after having taken it over to where I want the start line to be. And then, starting from here and wandering off into this part of the country, where, as you can see, I have cleared away the worst of the sticks. I now have a kindling wood pile 3 metres wide, 3 metres deep, 4 metres high with vertical sides. But there's a lot to go yet. Anyway, I have to unroll this poly pipe, going out sort of as I recall it. And this is going to be fun. I think I'm going to spend a fair bit of time with my chainsaw actually blazing a trail through here. At first glance it might seem clever to go down this track there, but the trouble is that's an established animal footpath, and if you do that you're going to have kangaroos, swamp wallabies and everything jumping all over it. So I might actually make my own little track through here, although by Joves it's tempting to put it up there and just pre-clear this stuff away from here. And then the idea is to just unroll, staying on the boundary between this patch of forest that, back when the stuff to the right of the forest strip beside the fence, back when that stuff over there got cleared, Stuff on this side got left alone. And then, probably 35, 40 years ago, the stuff on the other side of the fence got cleared. So this becomes a thin, narrow strip of remnant country. Lost all of its topsoil after the gold rush, 1870s perhaps. And across this country, I have to roll out a pipeline. Not too bad in stuff like this, but there are some thicker bits. And to be honest, I've had a look that side, and I've had a look that side, and I reckon it's pretty much going to be easier if I can just manhandle one of those rolls straight along here. This is actually, probably over this side, the easiest path through that tea tree scrub. And then after that, country opens up a bit and it's not quite so bad. Going to have to make some deviations around various obstacles, but the basic idea is to just track straight down on the edge of the remnant forest inside the regrowth, where really the shade of the trees has kept the vegetation down, meaning that if nothing else, the pipeline will be in the shade. And of course a plastic pipeline on top of the ground for 500 metres on the map. It's going to be vulnerable if the fire headed towards the hut comes up here along the fence. If that happens, the pump and the pipe will be the first thing I lose. But for fire from every other direction, it's going to be good. And it also means that as soon as we get any rain that generates any runoff, as soon as the dam starts to increase in level, and I'll be able to use water from here, which doesn't have any chloride and fluoride in it, which is why the trees down here aren't dying and drying and going yellow, but I'll be able to use this water to water my little clearing. Reptilian flyover! Because at the moment, this dam is just feeding the feral goats and deer, and providing homes for terrapins, aka freshwater tortoises. About 6 of them made emergency crash dives when I came up over the bank of the dam. And of course, while I'm playing chainsaws, I'll clear a path from the dam to the fence, getting rid of the eye gouges like that, because who wants to go down through that sort of country in the smoke when one can follow the fence line? And I'll probably put in a hand line as well. A bit of glow-in-the-dark fluorescent rope from tree to tree, from the fence to the pump. The better to keep myself on the path, going along the straight and narrow, and not getting disorientated. And the joke of it is, I really only kicked myself into high gear to do something about this water augmentation scheme, because my next door neighbour's solar powered bore system seemed to have come to a bit of a standstill. And I thought, why spend money on buying water? Why wait to spend money on buying water from my next door neighbour? And I can spend money on using my own water and getting it where I want it to be. Well, look who's started connecting up his system. 6 280 watt panels, 920 watts rated. So somewhere between my little rain dance and my neighbour's big one, we hope to get some water. I forgot to say, best part of the news, he found water 21 metres below the surface. And his well goes down 91 metres from memory. I hate down water. And the funny part is that if you think getting this in place is going to be tricky, after that, I have to figure out how to get this thing down there. Wobbles on a lot. To YouTube. Ciao.